Thank you, Oliver. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm just gonna do just a introduction to PHP security, because I see that as devs, most of the times we don't know where to start, especially if you're coming to that middle to senior level. You don't know where to start with web application security. So that's what I'm gonna do. What I'm gonna talk about. Nothing in depth, just in introduction. Right. So when we talk about security, we are looking at the application side. So there's application security, and then you got server security. So those are the two categories security for an application put in. So now for application security, oh, sorry, my slides are not moving. My slides moving now.
I can still see.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's changed.
Right. So there are two levels of, as I explained, two levels. Now we split them into two. So when you're looking at security in PHP, right? So the first one, which we're just going to talk about, is authentication. So authentication, this is just trying to check if someone who's accessing the application is who they say they are, or whatever. Is it even if it's in a machine to machine, if it is what it says it is. So it's just a check. So you need to get that in mind. It's just a check of verifying the individual. There's nothing more. There's nothing less. So authentication is just checking the individual. So the recommendations of how to do authentications, just use a username and password. Then when you're implementing this, it's recommended to use like a password, to enforce passwords, to have some minimum and maximum length. This protects especially the maximum one. People forget for the maximum one because there's people who try to put in like long text to see if your site will break. So you also need to limit also the maximum length which you can get for the password. Then in passwords we do compare hashes. So there's no plain text. We hash our passwords. So when we're comparing from the database, we compare the hashes, not the plain text. Then another recommendation is to use SSL. I don't know if people have, if anyone has heard about the Pineapple router, which can snoop your traffic. It easily snoop your traffic, like see whatever you're doing. So SSL is always encouraged on all applications. There are free certificates available on the internet with Let's Encrypt. It's helping everyone to secure their sites, so you can also use that. Then the way you handle your error message or whatever, your authentication errors, it's a key thing in security. It's often overlooked when you're creating an application. So the way you handle messages. Yeah. So I just want to give an example. Let's say now in this section here, you find the user, but the password is incorrect. So what you return here is just say invalid username or password. I think we have seen this a lot in a lot of sites. There's no specific like what's wrong. Is it the username or the password? So this is a secure way so that the hackers or someone, a bad actor trying to get your site doesn't know what's wrong. If you say your password is incorrect, then they'll try to choose to randomly generate passwords and try to log in into your site. So something more generic, just saying username and password should be returned is an error in whatever, if the password or the username is incorrect. So the same consideration, I think, should also be taken in when you're registering. Like if there's the account is already existing on the application. You don't want to know if you don't know if the person is acting in bad faith, trying to find out if Tapiwa is registered on this application. They can try to log in. If my passwords now are available on a porn site, or I got porn somewhere, and my passwords are available on the internet, and they can use that. So if you say the user is no account registered, then they know that there's no account. But now if you say your password is incorrect, so now you're already telling the bad actor that the account is available. So you can try to log in. So this is also a critical thing when you're thinking about securing your site. Right. Then also encouragement of Auth 2.0 for the APIs. So token-based, and also it's also encouraged to use multi-factor authentication. Like I think people who use cloud, most of them also, even at workplaces, they do have this, where you have your Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator is a second level of authentication. Then also practicing lockouts, like if someone's trying to log in for certain periods, so you can lock out an account if there's too many password tries and it is failed. So these are practices that you can do just dealing with authentication. So this is just a way you should think about when you're going about authenticating the user. So what you should check first is if the user exists, then your hashed password which you receive, then you check if the credentials are available, are valid. If they're not valid, then you do your generic return error, and you also do the same if the user doesn't exist. Just also a generic return error. Then the next thing, when you're looking at the application security, the application side, is authorization. So authorization is very different from authentication, because authorization, you are trying to verify. Now, you are verifying that a requested action or service is approved for a specific entity or person or machine, whatever it's interacting with your site or your application. So authorization, the key thing about authorization, when you are thinking about authorization, it's every request to your application, right? To that application which you are securing. Every request is some sort of a authorization. For example, if I go to a banking website, right? I have certain restrictions. I can go and I'll be able to use a contact form, because everyone, no matter whether you're logged in or not logged in, they can contact whatever bank which you are trying to talk to. But now, for trying to access accounts, so it's now another process, another action, trying to access accounts. So you look at now, are you authorized to access the accounts? Not just, I'm not talking about authentication. I'm not talking about you being logged in. Or we're just talking about, are you allowed to look at accounts? Or are you allowed to look at investments? Are you allowed to look at who's taking loans? So that's the authorization part. So authorization, authentication, that's where they differ now. So it's more of the, so the authorization part is the part of verifying an action. That's where it means it's different. According to OWASP, so most websites, like it's one of it's the fifth most concerning security vulnerability, because most people don't think of, if you're an your application got roles. So if you got an admins and if you got just ordinary clients, users, whatever, so those roles needs to be authorized to do all the actions. So if I can just do authentication on application with roles without authorization, then that means any logged in user can do actions which an admin can do. So what is recommended on this is the least privilege uh, model, where you just give authorize an action, give it the least minimum required, just privilege to do a specific job, to look at an account. You just need maybe just a raw code view account. Then to add an account, you need another raw code account add or something like that. So giving your application minimum, like the minimum privileges to do an action is what's recommended. And also, when you're looking at the security side, if you're thinking in terms of security, when you're doing your architecture or you're starting writing code, every request, I think, this is now my own opinion, every request should be authorized. Look at the authorization part for each and every request, so that you don't run into trouble later on in the application. Right. And, so the next item is when we are looking at the application security, it's encryption. The favorite word for the PMs, encryption. So encryption, when you're thinking about securing your application, encryption, the moment you think encryption is the first thing that you need to do when you want to secure an application, I'm here, I want to change your mind today. That's not it. Encryption, doesn't work like that, because encryption, it's a two-way function. You can encrypt and decrypt. That's why we do not encrypt passwords. We hash passwords. So meaning that passwords, there's only one way. There's no way to decrypt the password. So encryption is two-way. So think just because there's two ways, then that means someone can go and just decrypt whatever you've encrypted. So my opinion is that the moment you are thinking about encryption, you have to do a proper threat model first. So if you don't do any threat model, if you don't understand what are you trying to defend, or why do you need to encrypt, then you get into in a place like, I'll just give a random example, but this is not a true example, just an example. Let's say you've got a shop, right, like with products. Then your PM approaches you and asks you to encrypt the database. Now you go and encrypt each and every field in the database. Now you're trying to search, people are now trying to search for the product. How are you going to, because now what is stored there is the encrypted part. So that means you cannot run queries directly now on your on SQL Server now. So now that means you are putting more strain now on the web server to get the products first, decrypt them, then you do your search, then you return the results. So that kind of situation is what I would advise my fellow devs that you want to avoid. So you need to understand what are you trying to protect the application from. So if you don't understand that, then encryption is not the answer for whatever security thing that you want to do on an application. The moment you say encryption first, then you feel like you don't understand what application security is all about. Because also encryption, that means now you've got now keys, encrypting keys and decrypting keys. So that means now you need to think about how are you going to manage your keys? Where are you going to store them? Are you going to? That's why for an application, web application, the biggest thing is separation of the data. Like the data in the application code, they need to be sitting in different servers if it's possible, or different places, so that when you have encryption, your encryption keys are sitting in one place, so that when one server is broken into, there's hope for you that they might not be able to decrypt the information on the data. So that's the encryption part. So I'm just gonna skip the POPIA stuff which I was gonna speak about. So I'll just skip. I don't think it will be relevant for us today. Right. So then I'm just gonna brush over now other things now for the application security. Now we are just looking at in the terms of as the dev. As a dev now, you've got something called cross-site forgery. I'm too young to show you exactly what happens there, but cross-site forgery is something that you need to protect, just to make sure that whatever the application is receiving from submission, whatever data it's receiving, it's actually from a trusted source, or a source which you have authorized to send data or to receive data from. So this can be combated by using CSRF tokens. Then there's SQ injection. I think all of us have heard about SQ injection. I'm just going to skip about it. Then there's cross-site scripting and stored cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting is one of the, I'll say, but right now I think it's a little bit better. But it's one of the, if you are writing your own PHP code, if you are not using frameworks, this cross-site scripting should be something that you should take heed of. Like when you're storing whatever information you're storing, you should be able to escape it, so that when you are going to display it in the application, also, it doesn't run any HTML or any malicious scripts, JavaScripts, or whatever scripts the person or the bad actor has put in the form, or in the way, a place where you are expecting data to come from. Like when you're expecting a message from a text box, then someone puts JavaScript in there, then you need to escape that before you store it. And also, if you store it, whatever is being stored from the database, when you are echoing out or when you are displaying out to the application, you also need to consider escaping also any HTML entities in there. Then exception handling. When you're doing an application, especially for prod and staging areas, you need to give as little information as possible of any error which has happened in your application. You don't want to show too much errors there. The more you show here, the more the bad actors can have more information about your application, the code structure, and what's happening behind. So when you are going to prod, I believe exception handling should be very minimum, not displaying errors at all, none. Just say there's a generic error, like the generic message which we get from failing to log in. So that same kind of recommendation is given when you're dealing with exception handling. Then another big thing is that this protection against the root for admin user. So when your application, your root user or your admin is, let's say that day is angry or she is angry, she wanna delete or everything in the database. Is there a way for the application to notify other people who are maintaining the application that this has happened, or is there a way to recover that from that? So it's just a protection from the root user or the admin user. Something also you need to be taken in terms of application security. That's the same kind of security risk which is commonly used for those people who use those Bitcoin scams, saying Elon Musk is giving away Bitcoin. They do social engineering. They get admin access to Twitter tools, then they post those fake links. So it's this part here which is very critical. Then second section is the server security. Common law is server hardening. So server hardening, the main, I'll just put a cheat sheet. There's a cheat sheet here. This is the link to the cheat sheet. It's available online. So this is some of the things which I just grabbed. So the one of you don't want any you don't want any actor or any user to know which version of PHP which you are using. What you don't want to display errors. You don't want to, and also you should be able to report all errors. So that's the PHP INE configuration which is here. Then another security risk about which poses a shared hosting. So if your application is really contains sensitive data, I think it's advised that you do have a dedicated server. It doesn't mean that automatically should go to cloud. No, cloud is not just moving application to cloud. Cloud is totally different. It's not just moving. You can also move to cloud or a dedicated server. There's Linode. There's also other service providers. It's not just AWS putting applications to AWS or Azure or GCP. So that's the server security. And another key thing which I removed some other stuff. So another key thing about server security is in PHP, but these days I don't think anyone does it. But when you sessions, you should use cookies for sessions. And there's another, for your cookies, you need to set them to HTTP only. Okay, the reason why you should set to HTTP only is that, I just want to show you here, I've got this application here. I've got an application here. I just want to log in. Oh, okay. I just want to show you why you should have HTTP only in So I just need to quickly restart my server here.
It's always the thing in meetups, eh? As soon as you need to actually present it, the code bugs out. I'm assuming you're meaning HTTPS.
No, if PHP FPM. Right. So I've got my first site here. I just want to pull in another browser here. Right. So HTTP, why you should not allow your cookies to be accessed with JavaScript is because there are plugins which can steal your information. Right? So it can steal your code, your cookies. So there are also cookies. People sell cookies online, or even so. If they are able to access this cookie, so I'm just gonna see on the left side. I got Mozilla here. I'm not logged in here. So what I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm just gonna open here. I think let me open a private one. I think this is much more better. So what I want to show you here is it's very much possible for people to steal cookies, and when they steal cookies, it's very easy for them to just log in and do whatever they want to do. So here there are no cookies. So I'm just gonna copy over this cookie. So if you've got HTTP on, then you must put it off. Should not allow JavaScript to have access to your cookie. So now I'm logged in, you see. So just because I got this cookie, especially the Facebook cookies, people steal those. So you should be careful, even in the sites which you visit while you are logged in with Facebook. You just need to also be careful there. So if they steal those cookies, they can do whatever they want to do if they're bad actors. Then another thing which I just want to show quickly, it's about in your server. When I say that you need to send the least amount of information as you can, because the moment you start to send a lot of information, about your server, like what version of PHP you got, and what year. I say here, there's nothing. I don't know what version of PHP I've got. I've got X frame, so that my site is not a friend on other sites. So this one is fine. Yeah, I'm just gonna look at this one here. So this site is, I just Googled this site. It's one of the biggest banks in the world. Already the first problem I see is that it already tells me that it's a ASP. So I already know that I'm looking for a ASP vulnerabilities, a Microsoft vulnerabilities. If there are any Microsoft known vulnerabilities or things which are circling around the internet, then I can attack this site. The same here with the site here. It tells me exactly what version of SharePoint it's using. So if there are any issues with the SharePoint, that version of SharePoint, if the people those guys who are implementing that doesn't patch up the server quickly, then that can attack the server itself. So that kind of information, that's what you do with that link in the chat. The server hardening, that'll be that part. So that cheat sheet will help you to deal with those things. So let me see. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the end of this talk. So this is just a brief introduction. So there's a lot about with security. So you can also use that OWASP website. There's a lot. It's not just the things which I just shared here. So it's a lot with security. To you, Oliver.
Okay, awesome. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm going to go and check all my websites now. Make sure my cookies are set to HTTP only and they're secure, so they don't get hacked across. Are there any questions from chat? Or does anyone want to unmute and ask a question?
I'm just going to have an observation here. I know while you're deving a website and you have to continually log in on a test system, you tend to turn off security. I know it's like you almost go and put in a backdoor in some cases when you have to use something over and over again. Have you got any thoughts on that, Tapiwa? Is any thoughts, how does a dev make one's life easier? Because I mean, if I get one of those blockers again, you've been locked out because you've forgot your password, you try to help the customer or you're trying to get to the bottom of a solution, it can be a bit frustrating.
Because usually the way which I see it is having like 3 environments. Like your dev, you do what with that. Then you get your staging. Because I would prefer you not to do dev then straight to prod. So you have like some sort of a midway where you run your automated test, or you've got a dedicated tester if the budget allows. Right. So if the budget allows, then yes, get a dedicated tester. Yeah. So also in my dev environment, also they are disabled security, and also they are okay. There are other tools which help you. Like if you before you push, there are other tools which check your security even on the server itself, just to check if your everything has been sorted before you send out.
Yeah, no,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's valid points. I mean, yeah, I just see our Tim's also making some comments here. No, I also prefer my dev environments to be secure, and that's why I mentioned the frustration, because you want to make sure that the things work correctly, and obviously, yeah, I think it's just one of those real things you need to be aware of. I would be curious to see, how you would toggle things on for a prod system, with the security stuff. But yeah, and use of tokens and things like that. Have you got any thoughts on that? To give someone like longer life access, so they've logged in or something. Those type of frustrations.
Yeah, I do have thoughts on that. Especially with the tokens. I think tokens should expire. Yes, you might want to put money in the token, but tokens should expire. Period. After they expire, they need to be patched. That's all it is. That's my thinking. Tokens need to expire. There should not be a token which doesn't expire. I think tokens should expire.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for those answers.
Yeah, I think with most things, well, it's funny a balance, isn't it? So I know I've worked in places that had a very strict password policy, for example, and you have to change your password every 30 days. It needs to be this long and of this many numbers and this many symbols. And it just makes it impossible to remember. long term. So people then start writing them down or sticking the passwords on post-it notes on laptops and things. Yeah, so it's maybe trying to find a balance where possible.
So
Tim's asking, what sort of problems are you having where you have to turn off security on a dev site or staging site?
Is that directed to anyone specific, or is it just?
I guess it's a follow-on from the last question. We were talking about turning things off on a dev site. I think Tim was just curious as to what the problems were. Yeah, password managers for sure.
Although I've had a password manager where I had the keys on a computer, and then they lost the actual token to unlock the thing. I lost all my lost all my passwords. So that happens as well.
Yeah, touch wood, I haven't had that happen to me. That doesn't become a thing.
So I guess maybe following on from Tim's question, which I think was addressed to you, Andre, something you might want to look at if you use the example of trying to assist clients and the likes, it might be worth looking at in your authorization model, as Tapiwa explained, allowing the functionality for certain users so power users like yourself to impersonate a client user. Obviously, there's a bunch of requirements there in terms of protection of personal information and the likes. You have to have strong auditing. But when you're in that situation where it's a built-in functionality that you can, from your user, access as if you were a client, you'll probably find you have to override the security less in your various environments, whether that's your local, your staging, or on production. So that's a valuable one to look at. It was great to get a nice sort of survey of all the basics. It's nice to get a refresher there. I know you skipped over the POPIA stuff, and we're in a interesting opportunity here for the UK attendees. POPIA is our local equivalent of the European data protection legislation. Out of interest, what is currently happening with data protection laws in the UK? Are you guys still following GDPR, or is there a replacement in place?
I think it's still GDPR, but there's discussions around changing it or making something a bit more localized. But I don't know how correct or far along those are still. But I think everything's still GDPR and cookies everywhere by default still, at least for now.
Yeah. Okay, so still in the situation of
there are legal frameworks. I think there are legal frameworks, and then there are conventions, and now GDPR has become a convention. So even though the legal framework is a little bit up in the air with Brexit, I can't imagine there are many companies who are going, well, let's give up GDPR, now we're free kind of thing, because obviously most people trade internationally. So the default, I think, is that most people are acting as though GDPR is still a thing. And I think it probably still is a thing in British law, because it's a kind of British implementation of the European one. So I think it basically assume it's still there.
Yeah, Brandon says has to deal with GDPR every day. So I think, yeah. Okay. Any more questions for anybody? Shall we move on? Okay. I think for me, then just one more question for me. I think maybe what's the most important thing that you've learned from security so far, or what would be the first thing if someone was trying to get into this themselves? What would be the first thing you tell them to go and look at?
I think, okay, also, that website, also, OWASP.org. OWASP.org has helped me a lot. Like when I started, just reading through, understanding things before any book. But now they have cheat sheets, which is much more easier, because now you can just go to a specific topic and just read through. It's very short and it's very specific. So I would advise to start there. Then you can now go deeper now, try to understand and test things and see how things are, what they're talking